After Brexit, we're now closer getting to the next European elections on June 9th. And if it were up to the AfD, Germany should follow Britain's example and leave the European Union. But this DEXIT would cost Germany billions of euros and weaken the economy enormously. So I wanted to bring that up again. As I said, the European Parliament elections will take place in Germany here on June 9th. But at the last election 5 years ago, the electorate for the EU Parliament was much larger than it is today. In 2019, people from Great Britain were still entitled to vote. Brexit followed shortly afterwards, and with that, Great Britain exited from the European Union. In the opinion of the Alternative for Germany, which is the AfD, Germany should follow the example of the British and leave the European Union. But a new study by the German Economic Institute, the IW, shows that the so-called DEXIT would have drastic consequences for Germany's economic strength. According to the IW's calculations, a DEXIT would have a massive impact on the gross domestic product, the GDP, that is Germany's economic performance, and that after just 5 years. According to this, GDP would be 5.6% lower in just 5 years after leaving the EU than before. In concrete terms, this means a loss of 690 billion euros that would be generated in Germany. The German Economic Institute compares this economic damage with the losses incurred during the corona and energy crises combined. If the economic output of an economy falls, this naturally always has an impact on the labor market. Because if companies generate less with their goods and services, that means they earn less money, they also need fewer employees. And according to the IW estimates, a DEXIT would destroy around 2.5 million jobs in Germany. This is mainly because Germany is considered a strong export nation. The German economy is therefore dependent on many other countries because they buy goods produced in Germany. The German economy naturally maintains particularly close relations with the other EU members, because for these countries, thanks to the regulations in the European Union, there are particularly favorable regulations for imports and exports. And for these reasons, IW Managing Director and study author Hubertus Barth does not see Brexit as an undertaking worth emulating. The exit would have catastrophic consequences for companies, Germany as a business location, and the people here, he says. And Brexit is a prime example of the negative effects of leaving the EU. The example of Great Britain must therefore serve as a warning to all other member states not to give up economic integration lightly. But it's not just the economic aspect that is crucial, according to Barth. We should not forget that the EU is not just about prosperity, but also about openness, freedom, and peace, he emphasized. And simply traveling, working, or making phone calls across national borders. This is possible within the European Union, for which the new parliament will be elected in around 2 weeks. Some advantages will probably only become really clear when they disappear again, as with Brexit. It happened to the UK in 2020. In addition to the major political and economic issues, the EU also directly influences the lives of citizens in many areas. We have travel, for example. If you want to travel within the 27 EU countries, you don't need a passport. A valid ID card is sufficient. You can also use it to travel to Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. You don't normally have to show your ID at the border even. Driving across the EU's internal borders by car is no problem, because your national driving license is automatically recognized. Or telephoning. If you want to use your mobile phone on vacation, on a business trip, or during a semester abroad, you pay just as much in another EU country as you would at home. So-called roaming at domestic prices includes calls, text messages, and data services. And the reverse is also true. If a mother from Germany calls her daughter on vacation in Italy, she doesn't have to worry about additional costs here. But of course, another big part is work. The so-called freedom of movement for workers gives citizens of EU countries the right to freely choose their place of work within the EU. A work permit is not required. But also in the case of learning, universities in the EU must offer both locals and interested people from other EU countries the same opportunities in order to be accepted. The admission requirements vary considerably depending on the university, but a different EU nationality must not be the reason for rejection. With international exchange programs such as Erasmus+, school children, students and trainees can gain experience abroad. But it just is normal living anywhere. EU citizens can settle in any EU country. And this applies not only if they want to work or study there, but also if they want to retire there. However, with Brexit on December 31st in 2020, freedom of movement between the EU and the United Kingdom ended. And since then, visas have had to be applied for in advance for residence, study and work in the United Kingdom. But we also have it easier with payments. Quickly change money before traveling and pay high fees? Well, that's also largely history within the EU. In 20 of the 27 member states, you can now officially pay with the euro. And consumers are protected by EU-wide warranty law. This means that a defective item must be repaired, replaced, or at least partially refunded. Buyers are entitled to a 2-year free guarantee and a 14-day right of withdrawal. This applies to both in-store and online purchases. And if you get sick on a vacation, with the European Health Insurance Card, urgent healthcare in another EU country must be made available under the same conditions and at the same cost as in the insured person's home country. Anyone who has statutory insurance in Germany will automatically find the European version on the back of their insurance card, for example. Around 450 million people, 27 national cultures, 24 languages and many more dialects. The EU thrives on diversity and exchange. And if we get to know each other better, we can better understand and appreciate our neighbors. And regular exchange is important for this, ideally as young people. That's why I picked this topic exactly now for this. Whether at school, during training, at university, or when starting their working life, the EU supports young people on their path through life and enables them to gain international experience. For example, the EU is making a budget of around 26 billion euros available for this through the Erasmus Plus exchange program until 2027. The European Union enables school children to gain international experience through exchange programs such as Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps, which are financially supported. And these programs cover travel, living and training costs and offer young people the opportunity to engage in intercultural activities and expand their skills. And there's also Discover EU, which enables young EU citizens aged 18 and over to explore Europe by train and strengthen their European identity. And the EU supports students through programs such as Erasmus+, which enables semesters and internships abroad. The academic achievements made abroad are academically recognized. In addition, the European Solidarity course I offered earlier offers students the opportunity to volunteer abroad. The EU offers various programs for young job seekers to help them get started in working life and improve their career prospects as well. These programs enable stays abroad that not only promote personal development, but also help to strengthen European identity. The ALMA exchange program, for example, specifically supports young people who have not found an apprenticeship or a job. And the European Union offers apprentices and young professionals various opportunities to gain experience abroad and to expand their professional skills. And these programs are the ones I already mentioned with Erasmus Plus and the Solidarity course and Discover EU. There's so much they are delivering, and there are also the EU aid volunteers. So there are so many things that are helping for young people as well, which is one of the biggest achievements we have. But In Brexit, we often talk about the economic consequences that Brexit now has, which will prevent other parties except this one stupid group here to talk about leaving the EU. Nobody does that anymore except, forget them. But it's also a peace project. The EU is one of the reasons why we had peace in Europe for a long time, until someone from further in the east thought it's not worth living in peace on this continent. It brought countries together. It brought the neighbors closer together. And that is the biggest achievement of the EU. Of course, we all like the economic consequences that had and for all our lives, but that is a point that is always forgotten, and that must not be forgotten. So, if anybody is dreaming about DEXIT, forget it. And if you want to see something else, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.